How's it going, guys? Starshine18 here, and today the 6.3 update is currently in maintenance, and so I have patch notes pulled up here. We're going to be discussing every major thing that happened in this update. Now, first, before we do all of the big stuff, we're going to actually go through the usual things that happen every 3 months. So first, we have this lovely new batch of 6 monthly variants that are coming out over the next 3 months. And then additionally, we have 6 monthly variants being added to the basic pool. We have Scaregiver and Foot Soldier, Primal, Bombshell, Demon Artist, Webcrawler. They are in the basic now, and with everything that particular thing entails. And then they also did they have a hub now. Basically, they're just adding redeem codes into the economy. The combo breaker offer that was actually really successful is being rerun for Evos' second encore prize pool. So you get to actually spend $10, you get a legendary relic and 200k CC, and then you get to donate to the Evo prize pool. And then other than that, they're adding some new avatars. They're adding Theonite to all login bindings. You get 800 on Android, and then if you're on iOS, you also have the Apple ID binding, and you get an additional 200 there. You can pick between 3 main menu tracks now in this update. There was the new one from a couple updates ago, the OG SGM main menu theme, and then also the 2E main menu theme that you can pick between. And then additionally, there's actually a couple of different various combat balance changes. Corrosive Element got changed for the second update in a row. Now, instead of actually being a drain whenever you're not type advantage against double, now you get drained if you are at a type advantage or a type disadvantage against double. And also, they put Quietus in the random debuff pool. But yeah, now all of that busy work is out of the way, it is time for all of the major features of the update. So, first up is the new Shard Exchange store. This is Hidden Variables' attempt at making the monthly variants accessible sooner after their initial run. Because how things had been, as highlighted right here, is that the monthly variants would be released in a batch, they'd be out in their batch, and then it would be 9 months after their batch came out, they'd come into the basic pool. And so now, they're adding this store where for a limited time, you can get monthly variants for 5k relic shards of their rarity. For diamonds, it's 5k diamond shards. For golds, it's 5k gold shards. And then they're also, of course, adding this really convenient little convert relics button so that you can actually take your hoarded diamond relics or whatever and convert them and then start buying characters. So they also have a schedule where every 3 months after a monthly variant set is introduced, they go into the store. So in July, we're getting Dealbreaker and Curl Scout in the store. August is going to be Brass Bandit and Grim Reaper in the store. September is Hexcalibur and Noble Mogul in the store. Now, I have a few issues with what they've done here with the Shard Exchange store. Number one is that especially for free-to-plays, 5k diamond shards is really, really hard to grind for in a reasonable amount of time. Because what? Every golden /diamond PF, you get 40. for the gold character, or that's at the end of the PF milestones. You get like a burst of them once per month out of the event PF. You get like some out of grinding like D4 plus in Rift for diamond shards, and then you get a whole 45 shards out of doing No Mercy every 3 days, or like just like a bigger burst, but still like only 45 for the initial update reveal, for the initial update special week that they have realms on every day. And yeah, it's gonna actually be a while. It mainly the system with its pricing for the diamonds mainly feeds into people whaling. Like, if they go whaling on the event relics for the gold or whatever, or even, no, actually not necessarily for the gold. If they just go like whaling on, if they just start spending money in general, like they start spending on, like they spend on the pass every month, they get the extra relics out of the pass, they spend on the subscription or whatever, they'll get like more shards. They'll actually just get more shards and then get to more diamond shards for more of the monthly diamonds that they want to buy. And that doesn't feel great. Aside from the golds are actually much more manageable. It's still like quite a bit of grind to actually do the golds, but the golds are more manageable because you can get like over a gold relic a week, depending on how hard you go. Like, even if you just do like Diamond PF top 30%, you get like 1,500 a week out of prize fights between 2 Diamond PF 30% and a Elemental PF 10%, plus any shards you get out of Rift rewards, like D4 plus is usually pretty good for that. And then also the gold relic shards can show up in treasure tab as well. They're just much more available, well, in total, and their economy is a much healthier income of stuff. So the golds aren't too much of a problem price-wise, in my opinion. The diamonds are definitely a problem, though. My other issue with the introduction of the Shard Exchange Store is that the Shard Exchange Store could very well have been a proper pity system that isn't completely random for the entire game. But instead, they're limiting it to only monthly variants. And it could have been so easy, too. You just have, like, you get rid of the time gate stuff. And just, like, you have 2 tabs on the store, right? You have a premium tab that has, like, the monthly variants that are not in the basic pool, and they're at a premium price. And then you have a general tab. And the general tab would have a discounted price, and it would have every basic pool gold and diamond in the game available at all times for like half price. 2,500 shards a pop. Up of the respective rarity. And just like that, you'd actually have a bigger degree of agency of what to actually put your shards into. Do you want to put your gold shards into just like for cheap, but it's random? Do you want to invest a little bit more for a pretty reasonably powerful basic pool character? Or do you want to save further and get one of the flashy new monthly variants? I just feel like there's just a bunch of problems with the Shard Exchange Store the way that it was added. And it can definitely be improved on, whether it be through the shard economy or just what's available, or even just cutting the price. There's a bunch of avenues to go with this one. Alright, next up we have the replays. This is mainly a social feature. You can't actually look at defense replays, which is kinda silly to me. Because, like, one of the main appeals to replays, aside from looking at your own performance, was actually looking at your defense team's performance. And then, of course, also looking at trying to sniff out cheaters through replays. But we can't really sniff out cheaper. If you're sniffing out cheaters, you can't really do that with your defense because the replays are only for, like, your own fights. But even then, though, there's still, like, it's still, like, neat that there's, like, a social aspect and that you can actually, like, share replays around in chat and stuff. 20 is a little bit... The total capacity of, like, 10 recent fights and 10 favorited fights is a little bit unfortunate. Especially if you actually just blow through fights at, like, a rate of 20 plus an hour. Or are grinding really hard. You're not going to make much use of the replays there. So yeah, that's replays. They're neat. They're just a little thing. Now we get on to the first, like, major balance thing in the update, which is the band rework. And having like read through these on my own before recording this video, I am really happy with what they have done with band. So first up, his taunt is gotten a straight higher end duration buff. Always nice. It's just numbers, but it's still nice. Sweet Clarinet. Big one. It's gone from having no effect to being a meter control move. Band did not have any meter control at all, so that's really nice for him. Giant Step. This is one of the big ones. It has gone from a crit move to being a guaranteed buff removal that also disables special moves. Additionally, it also has increased combo potential between a higher launch and greater OTG potential. I will definitely be labbing around with this move when maintenance is over, because Band had been suffering from a lack of buff removal for the longest time, and now he has a move that is nearly on the level of Chaos Banish. Supersonic Jazz. It has gone from being a stun move to a heavy bleed move. It's more DOT for Band. Brass Knuckles and Symbol Clash are like the two... Like, okay, they didn't touch Noise Cancel, Symbol Clash, Brass Knuckles. So, with the new Band, he now has two forms of DOT. He has his bleed from Brass Knuckles, and now he also can go to inflict heavy bleed with SSJ. So, yeah, I think the 20%, being able to, like, chip off 20% at 15, at level 15 is going to be perhaps a bit more worth it than the stun. We'll just see how it plays out. What is nice about the DOT, though, is that, like, the stun, in long shot situations, the stun is, like, only about as good as how much damage you are actually able to deal with your attack stat. Or your existing Brass Knuckles bleed. The heavy bleed, combined with, like, a different stun, and can actually definitely get more damage on the table. Next up, Tiany Drive. It has been changed from a bonus damage on stun to being an armor break move that is also arrow K, which is really nice for being able to combo into it. Because previously you could exactly combo into Tiany with, like, into a stunned opponent or off of SSJ into lights, or sometimes off of SSJ after OTG against mids and heavies. Now we can With this, you can pretty much just like J3 Timpani in the corner against everyone, which is really nice. Take the A-Train. It has been changed from an armor gain move to being a second meter control move. This one, it's actually like the low level is fairly comparable to Sweet Clarinet, while the higher levels are actually stronger meter control than Sweet Clarinet, but you have to be on a longer combo. Additionally, they also gave A-Train a wall bounce, so that's nice. We can actually we can use this as an extender. Strike up the bands. This move was changed from a meter gain move on kill to actually just generically giving 3 stacks of regen. So they've just outright made Strike Up the Bands the definitive defensive BB3 to run on Band, because he gets free healing, baby. But this move isn't terrible on offense. This isn't terrible offensively. It is like natural recovery. It's not nearly as good as like an on-hit recovery or even like what we're going to go over with the Marquise, but it's still like decent innate recovery, albeit for a lot of meter offensively. But offensively, though, you're going to want to use Tuba Tuba if you want to use a BB3. Because this move has gone from just another stun move that Band had that existed to a second buff removal option that also has a final hit stun. The stun was so useless on this move in the past. You'd get it first hit, and then they go through the entire super, and the opponent would not be stunned by the end of the super, and you'd just be doing follow-ups. Now, you have a choice. Well, aside from buff removal being really good, you have a choice now. You can either use that stun, or you can just keep doing follow-ups off of the Tuba Tuba like you would before. And either way, it's just a really solid move. And then they also... Alright, now for the Marquise. Soloist has been completely reworked from a defensive Marquis around having no teammates to now actually using the armor dash. You get heavy regen and take less damage when you use the armor dash and tank a hit with the armor. You're healing 20% back just for like tanking a hit. And you take less damage. Like, especially in like harder content like No Mercy and 500% stuff, one of the biggest flaws of the armor dash is that you would take a big meaty hit of damage when you would actually armor something with the dash. And this is actually meant to actually help with that situation. Then, Frontman's actually looking really nice as well. They've added 30% resistance generically to Frontman. And this is really nice for... So for defensive bands, this is really nice because now you only have to invest 20% resistance on your set. And to actually get to the 50% threshold, and then you can also actually run some other things on bands' stats. You could run like crit resist, you could run just a whole litany of other things. You could run more meter gain, more cooldown. There's just a bunch more flexibility with how you build your band defensively with this ability. Additionally, though, Frontman offensively could actually be pretty decent with 30%. 30% resistance could actually be really nice for anything other than new PD, who I'm going to be going over in a few minutes. And then, the PA. When this was revealed initially on Twitter, I was actually scared that they were going to be changing the effect. But they thankfully have not changed the effect. They have changed the prerequisite. Instead of actually charging with every 10th combo hit, now you actually get 17% charge per special move from either side of the field. Which means it's like 6 special moves from either side of the field gets Blast Feet and the unblockable dash attack going. Which is crazy. Especially because of how defenders love using their special moves. You could actually potentially get Blast Feet faster, or on either end, than it was before. It's especially good defensively, though. Oh, because your band actually starts spamming his symbol clashes or whatever on defense, he's getting his unblockable way faster than he was from eating long combos defensively. And now for the other very large part of the update. We have a whole laundry list of variants that have been adjusted for this year's annual adjustments. Hellcat got a pretty nice little early game attacker kind of buff. She now, instead of getting one perma enrage, she now gets timeless enrages every 8 seconds. And additionally, in a first for any rebalancing ever, and this actually comes up again later, is that her stats got adjusted. She got about 30 points in health and also about 12 points in attack. But yeah, she just got straight a stat buff. That's nice for her. Bronzes love every stat point they can get their hands on. I don't think this is necessarily going to make Hellcat a meta-relevant character. She's still a very basic... She's still a very basic character. But she can actually be a much more powerful early game option for sure. Next we have the Silvers. So, Robocopy has pretty much gone back to his old design. The entire, disable blockbusters era, it just didn't work out too well for him. So now he's just gone back to his 3 stacks armor and barrier when suffering a fatal hit. And then he also has his snowbally enrage and meter gain when defeating an opponent. I'll definitely play around with him for sure once maintenance is over. Next up we have Tuman Gloom. Tuman Gloom has had her debuff pool cut down from Wither Curse, Heal Block, Hex, Deathmark to Wither Curse, Hex, and then newly added Quietus. And her random debuffs are now activated on Blockbuster or Special Move, but she only gets evasion from using Blockbusters. So, a 1 and 4 for random debuffs is really nice. The removal of Deathmark means that, Dive of Horus doesn't really have, anything going on as an Eliza move anymore. So, she can be run critlessly with the new ability, which is nice. And, Heal Block in general, Heal Block was abundant on Eliza kit. It wasn't that great of a debuff in this pool. So I think, Wither Curse, Quietus, Hex is just a pretty reasonable debuff pool. 1 and 4 is nice for her. It's still random. It's probably not going to be the meta, but it'll still be nice for earlier in the game, or even in my case, an account like the Mascus challenge, where we're going to be on restricted variants for a long while, well, it'll be nice. Big Top next. Big Top had her old abilities merged. So her old SA2 was merged into her SA1, and now she has a new ability where when either side is knocked down, she cleanses one debuff from herself and gets 10 seconds heavy regen. So she's a bit of a beginner healing variant. She gets countered by the likes of Hex, just like how her self-res was countered by Hex. She also, like, a deeply buried, like, heal block and inverse can also, like, do some numbers on her ability to heal herself. And they did not touch her stats, which is another thing that's going against her. It's nice. I doubt that she's going to actually be, like, a meta-relevant defender. But it's nice to actually see Silver's actually getting some buffs. Rage Appropriate's actually kind of interesting. So, first is that they've actually... Her permanent rages include blocked hits now, which is really nice. They've also lowered the threshold down from 10% to 10.75%, which is really nice. And she's now a more offensively focused variant. She gets heavy regen and armor every 10th combo hit, instead of getting a once per match heavy regen below 50%. So, she might actually be my next water diamond, just for, like, experimentation's sake. But yeah, a recovery offensive pain wheel that can actually stack permanent rages. That's rather interesting for a silver. Alright, golds. We have a nice large list of adjustments for golds. So first, Windswept has actually been given a nerf. First, they actually, like, reworded her first ability. Now, instead of actually just generically getting her Enrage and Evasion on counter hit, it's her first combo hit, specifically against the attacking opponent that gets Enrage and Evasion. And this is probably a targeted nerf at, like, hitting into, like, armored characters and evading armored hits. Things like unflinching characters, banned armored dash, and lock and load and stuff. Windswept was able to actually, like, farm multiple Enrage and Evasion stacks up against those types of situations. And now she can't do that anymore. And now for the main nerf, though, is that instead of the precision going away whenever Windswept gets hit, now precision goes away when either side is knocked down. So this means that, like, Windswept, she can't keep her precision for, like, multiple combos. She has to get her evade, then she has to dodge and get her perma-precision. And then she gets her perma-precision for one combo, and then it goes away, and she has to regain the precision. And I still think she'll actually be, like, a pretty reasonably strong perma-precision variant. I'll have to, like, test and see if the perma-precision actually... Well, I'll have to see if it actually matters for whether she'll still be good in terms of, like, burst damaging and killing an important target in one combo. There is a possibility, of course, that ringlet spam and multiple ringlets would actually be a bit more of a necessity to burst things down, which is Something I'm not thrilled about design-wise. But yeah, definitely a nerf to Windsweept's ease of use here, that she can't actually do more than one combo at a time with her perma precision. UV has actually been reworked. Instead of having a pseudo piercing and increased damage against armor, now her projectiles have a 50% chance on hit to gain 15-second Deadeye and Barrier, and her projectiles have damage and an ability to grant haste for 10 seconds while Deadeye is active. And this is actually like really huge for this variant, both on her own and with support. Because like on her own, she's getting Deadeye, which is really nice, because it's not only that piercing effect from before, but it also ignores the unflinching and some other things. Barrier is really nice for her ability to tank reflect damage and also tank stuff on block. And then the haste is really nice to actually get back to Impending Arcus, which is actually like the main source of projectile spam that can actually get you lots of barriers. But with support, she's compatible with Starlight, so she gets healing and enrage off of the barriers. And she's also compatible with Marshall as well, to actually add convenient armor breaks and heavy bleeds into the equation for additional damage and DOT. And then you can also, funnily enough, run both of these supports together and just go all gas with UV. It's not going to actually be like I don't think that this kind of team is going to be, oh, she's gonna cheese every single character in the game just by running these 3 variants together because she does so much damage. Like, she's still definitely going to... There's no recovery in there aside from, like, the regens while barriers are up. She'll still probably have problems against, like, Tainted Blood and other very heavy reflect damage sources. But if you compare this to a variant that had actually been completely replaced by a move substat, yes, I will gladly take this new UV, and I might actually use her. I've hardly even used UV in a very long time outside of like maybe PF Wheel, or other than just, oh, I just feel like pulling out this silly variant kind of stuff. Raw Nerve. Her design has completely changed, and it is... I actually think it's really solid. So, Raw Nerve's health loss gimmick is now that she gets Final Stand and then the permanent death mark when she goes below 50%. And then, her new second ability is that while she has Final Stand, 10% chance on hit to get an Enrage stack, timeless, not permanent, not timed, timeless. Timeless Enrage stack, 10% chance for Timeless Enrage, and a Super Leech. 50% of all damage inflicted is healed back. So that now makes 2 recovery-capable Painwheel variants as of this update. First with Rage Appropriate's offensive heavy regen, and now Raw Nerve's Final Stand healing. And Raw Nerve can actually get this healing from any Final Stand, which is really nice. So if you run her with Trauma Center, you run her with Fan Favorite, you run her with Reigning Champ, you can actually just have this 50% leech available to you more times than just going below 50%. Definitely a better variant. Definitely something I'm going to want to play around with. PD. PD has actually been given a few things. He still has his generic stun chance, But his blockbusters now have Starcross's effect where they do more damage to stunned opponents. And his resistance has been changed to a passive debuff prevention, same odds, 50%. It's a passive debuff prevention that also gives him an enrage stack. And my idea for PD had always been to just give him immunity above 50%. But this is interesting. And it's interesting because debuff prevention isn't stuffed by curse. It isn't stuffed by the opponent running accuracy on their set. And it isn't restricted to just character and signature ability debuffs. It works against catalysts. It works against match modifiers. This ability, offensively, this ability can work against Blockbusted. It can work against Curse of Knowledge, Hexy Time, Super Slow-Mo. It can work against Cripple Decker. It works against like every relevant debuff catalyst in the format and gives you more damage. Whether it's actually going to be able to really compete with just like immunity variants in those debuff heavy environments is going to be like a test of time. But between like extra damage to stunned opponents with blockbusters, the new enrage stacking with debuff prevention, and new band kit, PD could actually do some stuff in the Rift environment. Now the other buffed band has been buffed on the defensive end. G.I. Jazz, he had his two abilities combined into one. And then additionally, he gets 2 permanent armors above 50%. And this one feels a bit more basic to me. Like, sure, he does also actually have access to 30% resistance innately from Frontman. He can strike up the band for more regens. And he's more compatible with Futile. But even still though, it's like, you can still Deadeye through his armors. You can still like Deadeye through his armors. If you're like bursty enough, you can still like get past the armors and Futile threshold. He's better. But I don't know if he's necessarily good enough. Like, I will happily eat my words if Jazz here is actually just taking over the Rift meta 2 weeks from now. But those are my initial thoughts. That he's better, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be, like, super meta defensively. Materia Girl. So, Materia Girl, her star power gain itself was nerfed, but it is a bit more generic. It's just when either side is hit, there's a 10% chance to gain up to 5% meter. Then, for her second ability, her pool was cut down. Her pool was cut down from a 1 in 5 between Enrage, Regen, Precision, Autoblock, and Haste to Precision, Deadeye, and Haste. So it was cut down from 1 in 5 to a 1 in 3 of any buff that you want for any given situation. And sure, losing the 1 in Rage kinda sucks. But like, Block wasn't doing very much, and 1 Regen wasn't doing very much. And like, all 3 of these perma buffs actually have pretty reasonable application, and I could actually see somebody fishing for any one of these and it differing in different situations. The haste as well could actually be like interesting with Marshall as well, of course. But the haste stuff was always there on the old ability, but on a 1 in 5, but this is a 1 in 3. So, Materia Girl looking a bit nicer overall. I don't think she's going to be meta. But I do think it's actually nice to see her go from a 1 in 5 to a 1 in 3 on her SA2. Tidal Traveler. This is actually a really nice buff for Tidal Traveler. So, we've gone from being near a puddle to get timeless immunity to just outright gaining immunity when we spend a puddle, which is way more sensical design than being near a puddle. Like, you don't have to run under the weather anymore. You can just, like, run a nice generic umbrella set and be able to use the immunity. They also gave her disable blockbusters on her SA2, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not the craziest additional payoff, but it's fine. And then the final gold adjustment is that Time Thieves is SA1, which I legitimately, like, never used. They changed it from Deathmark to Haste, which is... Woo, she's a Marshall partner occasionally now. I don't think this is really going to be changing too much of her meta viability. Overall. There's just much better Marshall partners to be running than Time Thief. And now the Nat Diamonds. So, StarSpangled has gone to a pretty different approach to her design. She's gone away from armor break entirely, which is really nice for her. She now has like a barrier and guard break design on throw break, and while she has her barrier and the opponent is in the air, there is a 25% chance on hit to inflict 7-second bleed and fatigue. So she still kind of has a stunning element through, like, the fatigue. But she's also been given DOT. And previously, the only, like, Bella DOT had been, like, Pummel Horse in kit and then Scaregiver doing her drain. So you have another DOT option for Bella. I will say that, of course, with the barrier-based design, she is also a Starlight partner and can do more damage with Starlight, which is nice for her. She gets, of course, the recovery from Starlight as well. On her own, I think she's, like, a bit better. I think she's going to be better on her own. And then she's going to be at her full potential paired with Starlight. Heart of Darkness. Heart of Darkness, the outclassed Hexer. Well, we've given her a bit more of a draw. The SA1 now, when inflicting the 30-second Hex, also flushes away all opposing buffs. So she can get through immunity. Although she can't get through permanent immunity. We can't give her everything. Additionally, her tag out ability, it's gone. It's scrapped. Now we actually have a more on-point second ability. So when she actually picks up a kill against an opponent with any debuff, she gets 3 miasmas timelessly. That's really strong. And then also inflicts 3 20-second random debuffs onto the next incoming opponent. And yeah, that's really nice. Double is actually abound with debuffs between Chaos and even just, like, her own set. There's the slow on slide. That counts as a debuff that gives her miasma. There is the Hex from Doubles' Bandwagon, which is his, like, a pretty consistent way to hex outside of the SA1. And then, of course, there's, like, Chaos. I can do any debuff randomly. So, yeah, Heart of Darkness is definitely going to be worth some time experimenting with once maintenance is over. I don't think she's going to actually be replacing D-Wish as the #1 best hexer in the game. But the 3 Miasmas is actually going to at least be something worth building to. Starshine. She has been buffed. The immunity and blessing happens faster. It happens in half as much time as before. The perma precision happens in half as much time as before, but goes away when you kill an opponent. And that's, well, one thing is that you can actually, like, it is nice that precision no longer goes away on tag out. You can take Starshine, put her in the lead, have her out for 15 seconds, and then just tuck her away for until you need her. But we're not exactly going to be able to, like, fully nicely carry with her with this restriction. Because, like, you can't just go like, oh, we get to, like, build up for 30 seconds and then I get to keep the precision for the rest of the game if I actually play my cards correctly. So, it seems like Starshine, the design approach is that she gets her precision faster, but she's, like, a bit more targeted. And I think that's, like, a fair trade-off for the faster precision, is that she's a more targeted attacker. There is also, of course, still the possibility that something happens within the 15 seconds to actually just stuff the precision, and that still gets annoying. To where it's like, oh, she got her immunity and blessing in 10 seconds, but then the opponent flushed off the immunity, and now he is hexed. Or like, oh, she's fighting against Standout, and she doesn't get any of her immunity or her precision. Or it's like, oh, her immunity gets, like, she gets cursed before even the immunity drops. These things, there are still, like, certainly grievances in the design, and that were carried between the old ability and the new ability. But it's faster. I'll definitely be playing around with her. Megalomaniac, the Sans Marie. She has been given evasion, so she has a bit more threat for building up. Tag her in first, and she won't get as much evasion. Her armor only goes away when the opponent uses a blockbuster, so she can't, like, screw herself out of the 3 stacks threshold for BB3ing you. And then the biggest design change here is that Marie's stun was buffed by a second at max level, and she also drains 10% meter every 5 seconds when she has the threshold, instead of doing burst damage. And I think the idea here is to actually make, like, the built-up Sands a bit more of an annoyance with the combination of draining your meter and going toward her BB3, while also, like, taking away, like, the no mercy instant kill threat that was really, really annoying to deal with and necessitated killing her first in that area of content. She still kind of gets countered by bringing her in first. Like, sure, she can still, like, occasionally build up evasions that can kind of be a bit of a nuisance, but they can be played around easily enough because it's fairly predictable evasions. We'll see how Megalomaniac does in the defense meta, and if she actually like picks up higher level usage. And then the final ability nerf is a straight nerf to D-Wish. She now just revives herself with 25% instead of 50%. Additionally, there are 2 stat changes among these diamonds. D-Wish has lost 300 HP, and Dealbreaker has gained 300 HP. And so, yeah, there you have it. Dealbreaker got buffed a little bit on the defensive end with 300 HP. So yeah, that is pretty much my opinions on the new update. I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, as Brain Drain and Minette do their things, see you all next time.